Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Press Start to Play. This is your host Ayush, and once again I'm joined by the unstoppable force Manas Joy and the immovable object Sushil Rahman. Also joining us today is a very special guest, here to talk to us about video games in general, video games in India, video game journalism, and all the other stuff in the middle is Rishi Alwani. Rishi,
That's a
welcome to the
very
show.
Dark Knight reference. Thanks. Hi.
Welcome to the show, man. And Rishi
Mm.
has been an integral part of the Indian gaming community for a number of years now. He has been reporting on the industry for as long as I can remember, and has worked for some well-renowned and well-respected publications like Huffington Post, the MakoReactor, NDTV Gadgets, and most recently IGN India. During this time, Rishi has seen the rise of gaming in India in general, and has told its story multiple times over. So today we're going to be talking about some of those stories, right? Starting off, why not with the most recent development? The cat is out of the bag. It was your last day at IGN this week. How was your experience? And give us a sneak peek into the future.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So actually, I haven't been covering the scene that long. Firstly, I've been covering it since I think 2014,
Mhm.
and it seems a lot because time is a thing. It's relative, and it's even and I mean I've been in the games biz in one shape or form for over 10 years. I started doing freelance while in college, writing for a bunch of places like JLT, writing for a bunch of other places like HD. So on and off, I'd be writing reviews for them as and when they needed. And my first job was in games distribution and retail. Uh, I am the I am the joker who is responsible for the used game business model in India. So most publishers hate me for that. That's something I pioneered at Game for You, which is a brand I launched for then publisher, then distributor Milestone Interactive. That's not it. But yeah, I've been covering the scene for like since 2014. IGN was an interesting one. Uh, Simply because so how it works in India is it's not like you're working at IGN directly. You're working at IGN's license holder in India, which is a company called Fort Media. So
Okay.
so it's not like I'm on call with the US team on a daily basis and hey, oh, you guys are doing stuff on podcast unlocked. We'll push you in here. Then no, it doesn't work that way. We're pretty much independent. There are occasions where the international teams will reach out saying, "Hey, we got X exclusive, Y exclusive, Z exclusive. Can you help us push this? Can you help us signal boost this?" And we'd support on that. But by and large, we'd be our own thing.
Mhm.
And it
Right.
was to actually answer your question, it was fun. It was very eventful.
Mhm.
We've got I think I haven't had more drama in the space in the last 10 months than I've had in most of my working life, and for a bunch of reasons. I mean, we've had the PS5 launch, we've had 4G, we've had BGMI. There was like a ton of beats which made sense to cover and made sense to do. Even though personally, I mean, if I had my way, I'd just be playing JRPGs all day. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's been pretty hectic and it's pretty cool because um, the thing which I realized is that the scene's getting bigger, getting better, and
Mhm.
it is really hectic. But the good thing there is support in the sense that let's put it this way. Uh, when you're pushing out your stories, you use something called a CMS or a content management system. There's stuff like
Mhm.
there are the usual ones, right? Like WordPress and Blogspot. But IGN CMS is to die for, man. The best thing I've ever used. That thing scales so well on an iPad. Because for the first 3 months,
Mhm.
I was just writing off my iPad. I didn't have a laptop at that time. Now I have one with a
Mhm.
potato camera, as you can see. But point is, it's the CMS is a dream. It will scale so well on every device. It will make getting stories out so much more easier, so much more faster. So that was
Mhm.
really cool. And we also had quite amount of liberty on how we use search engine optimization, and that's an entire arcane science in itself. But it was good fun.
So,
Nice.
Rishi, you mentioned you started off at Games for You, right? And then eventually now you're covering stories in India. So, like, I wanted to know कि जैसे usually when you see like somebody covering games, it's either reviews of press releases or news, कि ना like God of War, Ragnarok आ रहा है इस time पे or rumors and stuff like. But you are for covering particular stories, following them up. It's more of a journalistic side of things जो मतलब होता है बट गेमिंग में उतना ज्यादा भी नहीं होता है इंडिया में तो आई मीन द ओनली नेम आई नो इज यू दो आई एम श्योर और लोग भी कर रहे हैं बट सो व्हाट
So
लेड यू टू दैट कि ना ये करना
So
है
there's
and ये viable है.
so here's the thing. I didn't look at viability to begin with. Like I
Okay.
did not look at viability to begin with, and I'll tell you why. Because my first actual full-time job in journalism was with a company called Games in Asia. And in Games in Asia, they were very clear that do original reporting.
Okay.
And it came at a very amusing time in my life because uh, at that time I had just got laid off from Square Enix. The entire team had got laid off. Square Enix had an Indian operation at that time, and I was pretty pissed off with the entire scene because at that point in time,
Wait, what were you
everyone in
doing
the
at Square Enix? Like,
I'm getting to that.
okay,
So
okay.
at that point in time, every our glorious industry was pulling off a bait and switch where they were telling every possible foreign publisher, "Oh, India's growing. India's numbers are great. You can monetize all that nonsense." They'd have shitty reports from places which I rather not mention, which would be peddled around. Then at the end of the day, you have people sitting in other countries thinking, "Oh, India market something we shouldn't miss out on. Let's get in now." And that's what happened to Square Enix. However,
Oh,
uh, given the fact that management in the video games industry doesn't understand video games. So, in their infinite wisdom, Square Enix thought it was a good idea to create an MMORPG in India for India for smartphones in 2012, 2013. So
oh
I
shit.
was I was I was the associate producer for that. And a month in, and then my first day is basically I'm given like a ton of docs which I just put on my desk, and I meant to go through them. And then later I'm told, oh, by the way, we froze it on this publisher, on this developer. We're working with this developer. You're going to be managing that project. And I'm like, listen, man, this is a nice idea and all, but here's the problem. They're giving us World of Warcraft on a mobile phone in terms of UI, in terms of clunkiness. And if anyone's played that MMO here, and if anyone knows anything about MMOs, you can't cram all that stuff on a small screen. And at that time, the most popular smartphone in India, I think, was the Galaxy Y, 3.5-inch display. You're trying to tell me
Mhm.
that who greenlit this?
Yeah.
So the first month, I realized, holy crap! I've been in my entire working career till now. I was actually working with people who knew stuff, and now it's like on the deep end with some very incompetent people who are running the show. So
Right.
anyway, point is Square Enix crashed and burned a year later, and I was in already in that frame of mind that the scene isn't where it should be, and I'm pretty cheesed off that it isn't where it should be. That was one part of it. The
So
other part of
wait,
it,
wait. I had another. So it wasn't even like a top-down MMO. Like वो third-person MMO था, like World of Warcraft.
yeah, that was the original thing.
Oh shit.
Uh
And this is
and
all in 2012. Like,
This
no Geo.
yeah, this is all public domain stuff on my LinkedIn, man. I'm surprised no one pays attention. So anyway, point is, a year later we all got laid off. No surprise, because I had to make sure we kill that project because they were, or at least adapt it, and the studio didn't want to adapt it. So that was problematic there. And that year I learned a lot. Ended up speaking to a lot of people, met a lot of people, learned a lot about the business outside of console and PC. Because my first job was in console and PC distribution and retail. So for me, I was like, yeah, I knew where the bodies were buried. So it was really cool. But when I was laid off, I was really pissed off because for me, the way I saw things going was that we work at Square Enix, launch cool stuff, and I'm a big Square Enix fanboy. That's the reason it's called. That's the reason
Right, right.
the site I ran was called MakoReactor, because I grew up playing Final Fantasy. Deus Ex pretty much changed my life. I wouldn't be in video games if not for Deus Ex, because that taught me so much on not just video games but about how to build a damn PC. Because I got it as a gift. It wouldn't run on my PC. I had to build a PC from scratch. So for me, I'm like big fan, man, and I was pretty disappointed that it ended that way. Particularly because there was no fault of our own. We were trying to do the right thing. But anyway, so my first actual job after that in journalism was at Games in Asia. And over there, the focus was original reporting. And that was one part of it. So that was already being drilled into me by some very, very good people. And the other thing that was there was, I mean, I always had this point of view that trailers are marketing, PR, press releases are marketing. And if they're marketing, they're beneficial to the brand, but are they beneficial to your audience? Are they beneficial to you? Is this something that you should even give a crap about? That's always been my mentality. So even grudgingly, I'd cover that stuff. But point is, it's not something I'd focus on because because you get questions from people, you get responses from people like, hey, why is A so expensive? Why is B so expensive? Why can't I get this cheaper? What's going on with the availability of XYZ? Where so point is, people would reach out, right? After they see your byline a few times, they'd reach out. And that would actually help. So what I would end up doing was I'd follow up with them and make sure there were stories on things that mattered. So it was a mix of things, right? One, me being cynical. So because I'm cynical and pretty much don't give a crap about what publishers have to peddle most of the time, uh, I I try to avoid the press release drama, and I try to avoid the review drama. Like even now, I mean, I like reviewing games, but it's painful to do because half the time publishers don't even care. India is a rounding error, so we're never going to get access when we need access. Everything's a struggle that way. So the logic is fine in that kind of environment. Why break my head? Why should I do it? When I can easily pick up the phone, make a few calls, or go to a bunch of stores in my area and find out what's the lay of the land. That's a lot more easier, the faster turnaround time, and at least more accurate. So to me, it just made sense.
But also switching from being a producer on a game to writing about games, like how did you decide this is my next step? Like, did you produce games before Square Enix also? Like, were you how did you get into producing games first and then switching from that to covering games?
So that's an interesting one. Before Square Enix, I was at Disney. I was working on their games on demand service, which was Game Pass before it was cool. And at that time, I was pretty much on the business and marketing side. I was helping them get publishers on board with very favorable terms for the House of Mouse. So we wouldn't be paying, I mean, for us, revenue share was 70-30 in our favor. So
Okay.
I was doing stuff like that over there and helping them revamp and relaunch that site. And around that time, Square Enix started out in India. I saw Kotaku write about it. And I was like, this is interesting. I'll apply. That was basically what I did. I applied on a whim and a fancy. Had three ridiculously amusing interview rounds where the toughest question for me was basically, which is your favorite Final Fantasy? And at the time, it was Final Fantasy 9. And they were shocked, why 9? It's such a medieval game. I'm like, yeah, but you understand. That's why it was medieval. So yeah, that was pretty much it. It's not like there was no. I saw they were there. I applied. I got lucky. I got through. And then once you're in, well, you realize the lay of the land, and you're like, holy crap! There's a lot that needs to be fixed. And in that process, you realize all of you guys are getting laid off. But yeah, it's I mean, I don't regret it because I learned a ton of stuff. I learned what developers tend to do when they want to bait for investment. I saw what happened firsthand when companies, like, it'll be so amusing to me because we'd be in meetings with companies that'll be like, yeah, you don't worry, we are super good at confidentiality and we're super good at making sure our employees don't leak anything. Dude, in 5 minutes in that meeting itself, I drew up like 20 Google searches of their own employees putting work which the company thought was meant to be private, signed, that employees had signed in their contract as private, leaked on the internet. And I'm like, listen, man, what the hell are you telling us? I mean, stop trying to BS us, man. This is nonsense. And yeah, and then so that was cool. But at the end of it, it wasn't like there was any genuine concerted effort to get in a production or get in a game dev. I just saw a great opportunity, and because I was a Square Enix fanboy, I applied. To be honest, if they told me, hey, you know what, we'll get you, but you'll have to learn how to code overnight and join us, I'd actually do that because I was a Square Enix fanboy.
So, since we are on that topic, let's discuss about your opinion about the current games being made in India, or the current, the game development scenario in India, and we'll add to that. What is your take on gambling apps?
So I think the current game scenes in India is fun. It's a lot. So if I compare the scene now to where it was 5 to 8 years ago, 5 to 8 years ago we had some really good mobile indie devs. And it pains me that most of them have exited the scene because you can't monetize on mobile, man. Indies can't do stuff on mobile these days unless Apple's throwing money at you for Apple Arcade. It's really tough to get paid, or unless you have an exclusive distribution deal with the likes of a Geo, it gets really, really tough to get paid, right? Which is why even right now the mobile scene is while it. So let's put it this way: if you have a specific skill set on mobile, you can still make money as an independent developer, but you're going to be beholden to one of the bigger guys like Geo or Google to get things done, or even Apple for that matter. But the PC scene is really interesting to me. I like what Ogrehead's been doing. I like what Holy Cow Productions have been doing. Raji, yeah, enough said, man. Whatever that
Mm.
studio is doing next is going to be really cool to see. And then you even have smaller guys, right? Like there's a studio based in Mumbai making a game called 1971, which is basically a naval simulation game on Steam. And I think they're using Unreal. Then there's an upcoming game that's going to be in Steam Early Access called City Block Builder, where the founder of that studio left his job in finance. His job was to make sure startups got money. He left that job, learned to code, and built his own studio from ground up. So there are some really cool developments on that front. And sure, man, like when most people talk about the industry, they're obsessed with how much money is coming in. And their yardstick is, oh, how many companies are getting funded. But that's not, to me, I don't give a crap. What's important is that games are still being made. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing. Because if you don't have games, who's going to fund you? And I think we're in an interesting space where the PC market is concerned. And we're getting there on console too. There are guys like Godspeed Interactive, which is basically a Pune-based, they do a lot of ports to Steam. Ports to Switch. They do a ton of Switch ports. They do a ton of PC ports, ton of Xbox work. And you have these guys who are able to be sustainable. It's not like fine. They're not going to end up making the next Destiny 2 or the next Final Fantasy 14. But to start with, at least they're trying to work in a way that's sustainable, right? If the business isn't sustainable, if developers have to keep begging VCs for money, what's the point? So it's nice to see that there is some people trying to do the right thing and do the right thing correctly. So I think on the dev side, surprisingly, I'm optimistic on it. If you asked me this like 3 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, it's a dumpster fire. But now it's a lot better. And it's a lot
I've
better.
been a dumpster fire for a long time, so sorry to cut off. Like I just felt like a dumpster fire for a long time.
You're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong at all. It has been that way for a long time. But I think the difference this time around is you have developers who are looking to go beyond mobile. And that is important, right? Because what used to happen is you'd go to any games conference, you'd go to NASCOM, you'd go to IGDC, you'd go to any of these things, you go to Pocket Gamer Connect. The entire emphasis was so overbearing on mobile, so overbearing on free to play that naturally developers are going to go there. And not everyone has the means to pull it off, right? Let's be honest. Today, if you're going to make a free to play game, right, your roadmap isn't just, hey, we launched a game. Your roadmap begins when your game's out. And your art pipeline
Engagement.
alone. Look at the number of skins in BGMI, for example. It's ridiculous. Every week there's something new. Every day there's something new. And the live ops is where I don't think most Indian developers have got the hang on it yet. And in mobile, it's basically going to be that. It's going to be live ops. It's going to be sustaining. It's going to be retention and monetization. And most developers don't have the skill set. That's coming in, though. There are a couple of studios that are going to be doing interesting stuff in that space. But by and large, PC is a safer bet then, right? Yeah, it's easier to make something polished when your roadmap is a one and done title most of the time, or a one and done title followed by maybe an update here and there to keep the community happy. So I think it's finally getting to a point where it's diverse, and I think it's going to be an interesting time. Now, so the gambling side of it, well, let's put it this way. It's like you walk in a Starbucks, you order a coffee, they give you tea, you have the tea, and you're like, oh yeah, this is fine. That is basically what it is. It's mislabeling. All right. It's like, hey, I've ordered a coffee. The barista is like, yeah, here's the espresso for Sushir, but you drink it, it's a chai latte, and you're like, oh yeah, this is fine. This is great coffee, man. That is the problem. Gambling here is being mislabeled, and in a way, I have to give them credit because I'll tell you why. What the entire cabal of skill gaming, real money gaming, gambling guys are able to do, what they were able to do, and what they were able to do very smartly, is that they played the divide and rule game damn well. They got on one side of it, they got the industry guys like Indian Game Developers Conference quiet on all things by sponsoring all that, by sponsoring their events. So the biggest apex body in the country that should be talking out on this stuff is quiet. All right. So they got them quiet. The second thing is a lot of Indian developers will not talk out against this because, surprise, surprise, for example, I know a lot of these guys get their work outsourced by game developers. So they've managed to keep them quiet. The third thing they've done is they've been very smart with approaching legislation. All right, these are guys who have the means, the money, and the wherewithal to hire people who've worked at the biggest fund houses and entities in the world. Like I like the number of people from the likes of places like SoftBank that are operating at these companies isn't even funny. So they've got all the right people on board. They've got all the pieces together. Like people from places like SoftBank, Tencent, they're working at companies like this, and they're able to build out that illusion and pipeline that it's not just their gambling nonsense, but it's gaming also. So they're able to show that, and they're very convincing with that, right? I mean, come on, how often do you see the guys from NITI Aayog show up at a gaming event, which is just a chess event brought to you by a gambling app? So all that is going on, and they're very good at the smoke and mirrors, and they're backed with money. The venture capitalist crowd love them because the venture capitalist crowd doesn't know what gaming is to begin with. So they're like, anything that brings retention and monetization, we'll do, which is a fair approach. I mean, if I'm just a bean counter who doesn't give a crap and just wants to make sure I make money, yeah, sure, why not? But the problem that bothers me with that entire approach is tomorrow when legislation comes in, right? See, gaming has enough problems as it is. Every other week we're hearing about one kid or another spending an obscene amount of money on BGMI. All right, where every year a FIFA game comes out internationally, you'll hear about how one kid or another spent his parents' life savings on Ultimate Team packs. Gaming has enough problems as it is from a design and legislation standpoint, which I think is necessary. Now you're going to add these jokers into the mix, which is hardcore casino poker nonsense. And how is that going to work, man? The law, where's the law going to draw the distinction? Firstly, I mean, we have such a glorious governance that they wanted to ban VPNs a few weeks ago, and now they want to screw over anyone who's going to make a responsible disclosure on hacks. That's the state of governance here. They don't understand most of these things. It's a lot of explain it to me like I'm five, right? Now in that kind of environment, you guys are basically throwing kerosene in it by calling yourselves gaming. Dude, come on, man. Because you want to grow, you're going to screw over the rest of us. That's what it seems like to me. But I have to hand it to them; they're quite smart about it.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of gambling related press like because I no longer work at Gaming Central, but my number is still listed there. So I get like at least 3 calls a week. कि ना हमारा ये प्रेस रिलीज छाप दोगे तो मैं बोलता हूँ चलो आई एटलीस्ट लुक एट इट मैं छापने तो नहीं वाला बिकॉज आई नो लॉन्गर वर्क देयर बट आई वांट टू सी आई एम ऑलवेज क्यूरियस कि ना व्हाट इज दिस कंपनी डूइंग एंड ऑलवेज विदाउट फेल इट्स अ गैम्बलिंग a new gambling thing.
See, there's also another underlying reason to all of this, right? The reason why they're so high profile and the reason why they're pushing legislation. And I don't know if you saw recently, the MeitY has basically said that they're not going to be responsible for regulating these guys. And I can't blame them. The MeitY's got a lot of shit in the last year for the PUBG ban and stuff like that. They're tired. They didn't even want to do it from what I'm aware of. So I can't blame them for like washing their hands off the entire situation. But the real reason why these guys have such a high profile and why they're trying to push it in so many directions and so many ways is simply this. They want to be on the App Store. They want to be on the Play Store, right? Now, because they're not on the Play Store, it's their cost of doing business, from what I'm aware of, is 30 to 50% more, depending on the company. Because see, if you're not on the Play Store, you're not on the App Store. You can't do low hanging fruit stuff that will get you visibility like App Store optimizations, which is basically their equivalent of search engine optimization. You can't you can't run promos, you can't do all that stuff. So what you have to end up doing is you end up hiring a celebrity, you end up putting out press releases regularly, you end up telling people, your entire concerted effort becomes teaching people how to APK bhej yaar. That is basically the entire approach. So from their logic, the cost of doing business is a lot more. And VCs are aware of that. Whoever's funding this stuff is very well aware of that. They're more than happy to give the money. Because they're all operating with the assumption that with enough pressure, all this will go on the Play Store. That's the same reason why Paytm's gambling app also got in shit, right? They snuck it in. They weren't supposed to sneak it in. And the way they want to spin it is like, some Atma Nirbhar stuff. Dude, I mean, last I checked, gambling wasn't I mean, sure, that was the entire premise of the Mahabharata, but come on, man, like it's it's pretty ridiculous that you guys are going to use that to say that Google is screwing over Indian devs, but I don't know what to say. So from their point of view, it's basically to remove that 30 to 50% cost. It's to keep their costs down and to get better visible and to make sure they're on the Play Stores. The end goal is that. Yeah, all of this is in the end goal of making sure Sundar Pikachu or Sundar Pichai, depending how you want to call him, flips a switch and makes it all happen.
Okay, now since we
First
are
time I
on,
heard that.
since we are in the vicinity of that topic, let me ask you this, because I didn't think we would go into that kind of uncharted territory here, but you often do tweet out political statements, and what is your view about the current situation in India? And that is something that you can choose to avoid if you want to, like if you want to talk about it a little bit.
I mean, see, I mean, all I'll say is, firstly, my tweets speak for themselves. So read into it as you want.
But RT is not equal to endorsement, right? As per your
Pretty
Twitter
much,
bio.
yeah, pretty much. But all those basically happen to make people aware. That's basically the logic, is to make people aware. And I usually only tend to do all this when I think what's going on is bad for business. At the end of the day, that's what I tend to look at. And I mean, part of it is the fact that, yeah, I mean, I'm Sindhi, man. That's what we do. We look at business. So yeah, that's where I fit the stereotype that way. So for me, right now, I feel that how do I put it this way? Look, if I look at what's going on from a games ecosystem standpoint and the politics as well, we're in a weird situation where if the government doesn't step in, if other investors don't step in, you're gonna have half the business owned by Crafted. Is that what we want? And I think there is a political angle to it. I do believe there is a political angle to it. I do believe there is an investment angle to it. And that's the thing that at the back of my head is playing out, right? Like, come on, when no one else is spending large amounts of money or any amount of money, and you have just one company spending all the money, where's the government support, right? Today, when you have the maker of Ludo King saying out loud in one of the biggest virtual conferences in recent memory that the government should support the games industry, right? And he has no business to ask for that. The guy's made more money than anyone else at this point in time, right? He shouldn't care. He's able to rope in whoever he needs to make his games great. But when you have a guy like him, right, making a very honest, down-to-earth statement that, hey, the government should support skilling, the government should support us, get games out. When you have that happening, that to me is a flag that more should be done. So to answer your question on the current political climate, I think more can be done to move our medium forward, and it needs to be done from someone who's seen as an authority figure in the country, right? We can't keep having investments made from third parties and foreign companies all the time. You need to have the government step in, and that's done wonders for other countries. If you look at Canada, for example, right? I mean, there's a reason Ubisoft, 2K, and a lot of and Epic, and even Bethesda for that matter, have studios there because there is a good reason there's a good financial reason to do that, and more importantly, you're creating jobs, you're creating employment. So I think they're missing a trick, to be honest.
So, Rishi, do you also think, like so much of the boom around gaming came with PUBG Mobile and almost like an industry built around it, like with events, esports teams, so many streamers. So, do you think it's can वो भी एक problem है कि like it's not an Indian game or a और लेकिन उसके roots Indian है ही नहीं बिल्कुल भी, which is not like not a problem कि सब कुछ Indian होना चाहिए, like I'm not saying that, but do you think कि like depending like a big industry like gaming का एक जो major component है, not coverage maybe but streaming, events, so many teams, and then of course so many companies who do tournaments around those games. PUBG के tournaments इतने होते हैं, but all of that is done based on a game made in another country. So do you think कि like उसके लिए भी कुछ होना चाहिए कि ना, like there should be do you think that also is a part of the government support coming in ताकि there's like proper Indian games being made, or PUBG का जो काफी सारा development है, some of it is happening in India actually, and so that skill is being developed here itself?
So I would so there are a couple of ways to answer that, right? Like, firstly, if you look at what the government's done publicly, Every now and then you'd have the PM say games should be made in India. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But those statements also, the way they're framed, show that the government hasn't even looked into it, and this is tokenism. I'll tell you why. You can't just flip a switch and one day say make games in India without actually putting your money where your mouth is, without actually providing infrastructure, without providing support, right? We've seen IIT Mumbai have a games dev course, right? That was like that was like at the beginning of the year. What after that? What else has been happening after that? Where is the support, right? And that's what I think we're lacking. And in a way, I can't even blame the government because there are like 20 million other things that will have higher priority than this at this point in time. I can understand that too. So I think that's going to be a push and pull that's going to take a while. We're going to see more friction there for a while. And until things settle down, until they make this a priority, until they want this to be a priority, it's going to be a push and pull. Now about should there be an Indian game and all? I mean, that'll happen eventually. That's not going to happen right now, right? We barely have the competency in place, right? Because see, when you're looking at a game of that level of a BGMI or a PUBG, where you have an ecosystem play, where you have a content creator ecosystem, where you have an esports scene going on, we have, like as you said, an entire industry spring up. You need a lot more moving parts and a lot more competent people. And Garena has tried to do that with mixed results. Personally, I feel that they could have done it a lot better. But the good thing is, until that comes to fruition, and that's going to take a while, man. That's not going to happen anytime soon because while there are great games, right? You have a couple of really good mobile shooters from India, like Mask Gun, for example, which is really fun to play. And in fact, was doing Counter Strike on mobile before that was a cool thing to experience. So you have one, and it took them a while to get there. The game was in early access for like I think 3 to 4 years before it even came out, right? Then they hit 40 million users worldwide. So it's going to take a while for that to happen. And until then, I don't see what's wrong with support being given to the most popular game in the country. Because let's be honest here, right? Look at something like Zynga, right? You have Zynga, which opened shop in India, I think in 2010, 2011. It became a hub for learning, to be honest. The people who were there ended up moving on to do bigger and better things. A lot of them started their own studios. A lot of them moved into other businesses altogether. You need that kind of situation where anyone for that matter, is able to put the funds and resources in and able to create something out of nothing in a way. And that's where I feel that it's going to take some time, because even if you look at, and that's why I'm fascinated in trying to track what the investors tend to think, because a lot of them are on this whole metaverse this, metaverse that. Like anything with a working internet connection for them is a metaverse. But I think that once you have someone coming in, right, and trying to do something that doesn't make sense from a balance sheet perspective at all, you'll see some movement. So, I mean, yeah, to answer that, it's going to take a while. And until you have all these things come into play, it's going to be a state of flux. But see, the silver lining in all of this also is that if you talk to any of the good, like, for example, you talk to anyone in the content creator space, right? They're actually pretty smart. I mean, sure, the videos are what they are, and we can all have our lovely opinions on that, and I'm sure we all have our very extreme opinion on that. But these guys understand the need to diversify, right? And I'm saying this because in my last few weeks, I've been talking to content creators left, right, and dead center, because I find them to be very fascinating specimens, and I'll tell you why. A lot of them believe the mentality is, gaming is big in India right now, so it makes sense for us to be on YouTube doing this. That is their logic. And they're like, we don't want to be stuck to just doing gaming. We want to build our own personal brand. We want to diversify from there. So I'm like, okay, what do you mean by diversification in this case? So one of them, like God Nixon, who pretty much said it on an interview on IGN, was that, yeah, I'm starting a production company, and that's the company that's actually done the video work for Krafton's promos, right? Then you have others who are like, for us, diversification is doing vlogs, real life stuff in line with what international creators are doing. So what's really nice is you have a set of people who are looking to go beyond gaming because they know that's where you need to grow at this point in time. So I'm not too worried. I think we're going to be in that state of flux for the immediate future. And when things settle down, it'll be fun. So it's in a better place than what it was 5 to 7 years ago. That's how I would put it.
I have
Okay.
I have a follow up to this like, but I think I already kind of know the answer. But जैसे काफी सुनने को मिलता है ना with the boom of PUBG, लोग कहते हैं ना अरे गेमिंग को बर्बाद कर रहा है ये, it's all of that. But which I think is kind of ridiculous क्योंकि at least PUBG की वजह से gaming is getting bigger. It's not like कि जो लोग पहले जो लोग अभी suddenly PUBG खेल रहे हैं, they were पहले playing Deus Ex. है ना, it's not like they jumped from Deus Ex to PUBG. They just started with PUBG and maybe they'll move on to something else. But do you think it, because the entire industry kind of built around like one game, do you think that stifles the community, or do you think it helps? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but I just want to hear it from you.
No, that's an interesting question. I never thought of it that way. And see, here's the thing, right? It's not. I look at it at this point in time, specifically at this point in time, I don't see it stifling anything. And that's because if you look at the competition, what you have, right? I can't think of another battle royale game or another shooter as polished. Yeah, the game has its issues. Crafton still needs to fix the doors. Crafton needs to still fix the notification system. That's a little too, obsessive every time you switch the damn thing on. And I do believe that there's a lot of cleanup work they need to do with the general chat, which is a nightmare. The game's meta also needs to evolve over time, that is an ongoing thing. But if you compare it to everything else, what are your options?
Yeah.
Right? I don't see any game coming to the table just yet. I don't see anyone who's able to put in that level of polish and resources and attention on India at this point in time. So I think in the interim, it's a good thing. Now where it becomes a real problem is, to me, where it becomes a real problem is if the install base doesn't grow, right? Because if you notice, they did that whole thing, road to 50 million, right? And they're trying to tell people, hey, get your friends to install the game, get free stuff. Let's hit 50 million. They hit 50 million already. Now, I'd kill to be a fly on the wall in those discussions at Crafton where they're doing the sales forecasts and thinking, okay, can we hit 100 million in a year? And then I'll be wondering, okay, there is no bottom. So we're able to get the first 50 million, right? If we go by Jio's subscriber base, I think at the beginning of the year, they said we have 400 million, right? Now, from the 400 million, from what I'm aware of from publicly available data, feature phone users are still 100 million, roughly. So you leave that out of the equation for now. Until JioPhone Next comes out and is available for pre-order, leave them out of the equation for now. Your addressable base, if I take Jio and I take all the other operators, is okay, fine. Assume the other operators add another 100 million max. You're probably looking at the best case situation of 500 million users, right? Now, from 500 million users, if you have one game, that's 50 million. That's like what, 10% of the market roughly, right? Now, who can come and claim in the remaining 450? Or do the remaining 450 million even care? And when you look at it from that point of view, it becomes a very interesting situation where it's really tough to tell whether the market's saturated or not, right? Because if you look at it from a PC and console standpoint, it's a lot easier. Yeah, I mean, we know that right now the PC market is pretty much a shit show because of crypto, right? But we do know that in terms of sales figures, the numbers are on par with high-selling PS4 or PS5 games because it's usually 1:1. So with console, with PC, it's a lot easier to track. The numbers are a lot smaller. You know the depth of the market. You know that fine. If the PS5 already sold 25,000 in the first 7-8 shipments, you know that for the rest of the year, it's just going to be a very chill scene. That's easy to project. It's easy to predict. That's fine. But with mobile, the problem is we don't know the bottom. We don't know the depth of the market. And because of that, it's going to be uncharted territory for everyone. And when I look at that situation, and if I look at the user journey, I do agree, yes. You're going to have a lot of people who use this as a gateway drug and move on to other games. And I do see that happening. I mean, a lot of people who wanted to buy a PS5 day one never owned a console. They have the money, never owned a console. In their own words, we've been playing on mobile. We want to move on to something better. What have you been playing on mobile? Playing PUBG, playing Clash Royale.
Yeah.
So I've seen that behavior. I agree with you. And I mean, yeah, sure. Like one part of me is like, yeah, a lot of the press releases and stuff that come in are bait. But when HP said that 30% of gamers want to move to PC, they weren't bullshitting. That I've seen that behavior with a lot of folks. And surprise, HP isn't even the first company to say this. Back in the day, when back in the day, Chandras Panigrahi, who used to be AMD's business head, actually had the same theory, as did Atindra Bose at Sony at the time. All of them had said that, yeah, you're going to see that behavior where people move from mobile to other platforms, because that's how it's worked in other markets. They know, they have access to data. They've seen that. So I think that's going to happen. And I think it's going to be a net positive through and through. And it's also why, if you look at it, right, from a sponsorship perspective, notice why every PC tournament has a lot more sponsors on the table than mobile. And that's because, businesses are also aware, if like, because you have a brand that's a keyboard brand, or a brand that's a cabinet brand, or a power supply brand, or even a hard drive brand, why would you support a mobile esports tournament? You'll be supporting a PC tournament, right? That makes sense for you. For them, it's not a numbers play. It's a relevance play. It's a brand play. So all that is happening too, right? So I think it's a net positive for now. How much of a trickle over happens, what's the actual depth of market will determine long-term success.
Since we were on the topic on the consoles, and we are moving a little away from mobile right now, let's talk about the next generation of consoles that are coming up. That are already here for us in India. Some of us, it's already coming up. So it's the Xbox Series XRS, the PS5. What are your thoughts about it? Like, but do you believe in the whole console war thing? What is the thing you have been constantly talking about, the $70 price thing here in India? What are your views on the Xbox Game Pass? We'd love to pick your brain about it.
So it's an interesting scene because it hasn't changed. And it's very surprising to me that the scene hasn't changed in this market for a better part of 10 years. And surprise, surprise, it's not just an India problem, it's an Asia problem as a whole. I see the same behavior, and even not just Asia, even Middle East. So when you see most of the emerging markets play out the same way, you know that there's a systemic problem at Microsoft. And I say that because they've given Sony these markets on a platter. Right now, Sony is able to get away with $70 pricing because Microsoft's not competitive. And I can say that straight up because, let's put it this way. If a game like Ratchet and Clank, for example, 5,000 rupee price point, painful to look at, makes me cry. But then when I look at Flight Simulator at 5,899 on disc, and we're still, by the way, we're still a market where majority sales are disc, right? My point is, what the hell is going on? And I think that it's a problem. You can't have a situation where it's dominated by one platform holder for so long. It's not good for the market. The market will grow, but it's not good for diversity. It's not good for the business as general. Because, see, and I'll tell you why. Because what we see is the games on the store shelves, the games are available to buy, the hype around that. But there's more to it, right? When you go into a game store, or even Amazon for that matter, it's pretty obvious that we are a Sony country. And we are a Sony country not because Sony is doing anything special. It's because Microsoft's not doing anything at all. And in that kind of environment, it becomes a problem for retail also, right? Because today, if you're a store or you're any business that's built on the back of Sony, tomorrow Sony can change the terms of the deal, and what are you going to do? It's a dangerous situation, right? And I'm seeing that play out. I'm seeing that play out where retailer margins are being reduced, quantities, they're not getting what they want, and they can't say anything. They have no negotiation power because it's Sony at the end of the day. If they don't have Sony on the shelves, that's 60 to 70% of their revenue gone, right? So from a business perspective, it's not good. And a lot of it has to do with Microsoft's priorities or lack thereof. It's not, you can't expect them to come here and do anything overnight because I think that as much as Phil Spencer wants to show that the game that, Xbox is growing, cool story, bro, more power to you. But you guys have done jack shit in India for over 10 years at this point. And I can't blame them because, when you have to write off a $90 million marketing investment on, sorry, not 90 million, 90 crore marketing investment on Xbox 360, you're still going to have that at the back of the head before you try anything. But it's a messy scene that way. And see, while Game Pass is great and all, cool story, it's nice from getting people in. It's nice from creating access points. There are some fundamental issues with that also from an India perspective. And no, not for customers. For us, it's great. It's a problem for a business, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm guaranteeing you, everyone on this podcast and everyone listening to this podcast knows at least one person who's paying not more than 50 rupees to access Game Pass in perpetuity.
Yeah. I have a
Everyone,
WhatsApp group dedicated to that.
that's my point. Now see, here's the thing, right? Their logic is, oh, we'll keep the entry price low. Eventually, people will convert. Like, dude, you're operating in India, all right? Flipkart tried that for years, undercutting and discounting everyone. Where did that go? How did that help? At the end of the day, they were sold to Walmart of all people, who's also, by the way, known for that stuff. All right. Uber has had to take mad. India is one of few regions where Uber still has the discount stuff. Otherwise, they're not going to do anything. There's a reason Zomato, even after having an IPO, still is coupon central. All right. Because at the end of the day, you painted yourself into a damn corner, and there's no other way you're going to get revenue in. And to me, that's going to bite them. That's going to bite them hard down the line. So right now, it's nice to say, yeah, Game Pass is the best deal in gaming and all. Great. Yeah, it's great for us for now. But is that going to be the situation down the line? I don't know. Because when you have people like Strauss Zelnick at 2K making it very, very, very clear that subscriptions are an additive to the business and not exactly the main reason they are in business, means what? You're talking, and I mean, everyone's bought at least 2 copies of GTA at this point, right? So what are you going to do in that situation when the biggest, and it's not just him, right? Ubisoft started their own subscription program for this reason. They didn't want to touch this. EA did the same thing. So my point is, either you're going to have a situation where everyone does their own subscription services, or there's going to be a pullback. And I think it's going to be a mix of both. So I think their strategy is misguided. It's laid in the foundation of the entire startup culture of getting an install base and worrying about profits later. It's Microsoft, they can afford to do it. Their shareholders don't care. But I think it has long-term repercussions on how people view content. And I'll tell you why. Because you don't want a situation down the line, right, where people think, oh, because it's free or because I'm paying a really low cost, that's how all content should be priced. That screws over independence. That screws over anyone who's actually who wants to set a fair price for what they deserve, what they determine as what they should be paying for a game. And I think that's where the main issues lie. And I know this because, surprise, surprise, when I was at Disney, these are the same problems publishers had then. We were literally told it by no uncertain terms by at least 5 publishers. Wow, your pricing is really good. Aren't you afraid of devaluing our content by pricing it that low? We were, I think, $500 a month at that time for access to 200 plus games at least. At that time, this is 2012, 2011, at that time publishers were even concerned. So I can only imagine the amount of hand-wringing that's going on to make sure Game Pass looks like a successful thing, and how much money Microsoft's pissing into the void to make sure people keep coming back. So I think I don't know if that approach is sustainable, to be honest. And because you have Microsoft too distracted by Game Pass, you're not building out communities around Halo. You're not building out communities around Forza. These are 2 of the biggest. Heck, Forza, Gears, and Halo are 3 of the most. They're 3 biggest franchises in India. They're not doing shit. They're not doing shit around Age of Empires, which they should be doing. They're not doing anything. They're not building anything out. And in that environment, what do you think is going to happen? That's why all the discourse is around God of War, right? That's why all the discourse around Spider-Man 2. That's why everyone cares about the fact that Insomniac can release a CG for Wolverine and people care. So they kind of lost the plot, man. And I think it's problematic. Don't get me wrong, it makes my life easier. Because from a work perspective, it's a Sony market, great. I don't have to get my hands dirty too much on Microsoft. But it's just that they're missing out, man. It's money on the table. And I don't like people just leaving money on the table. It's pretty much that. And there's also another reason for it, a very immediate reason for all of this. The running joke in distribution and retail circles is if you're dealing in Surface products or if you're dealing in the Windows products, Microsoft will reach out to you ASAP. Things will happen. But if you're dealing in Xbox, you might as well pray to the old cosmic gods there to help us out. And here are please, so we can work stuff out. It's painful. It's painful for anyone selling Xbox in this country. So yeah.
I noticed that you said but about Insomniac, right? But those names are basically much more recognized than Halo will ever be. Just in the general sense, Spider-Man, Wolverine. These are not names just limited. Halo has tried it. They tried in live action movie They've tried like getting into animated movies. They've tried to create a universe there, and they have with the mixed results, right? But you cannot compare the impact of the people that know Halo to the number of people that know Spider-Man or Wolverine, right? That will always have a larger impact than a new Halo game. And like I have talked about the counterproductiveness of this on this very podcast in much more detail before this. Like I am a big Halo fan, right? And every time I see Microsoft doing bad with something bad with Halo, it hurts me in my heart deep somewhere. That child who
So
played
how did you
Halo
feel about
hurts
the
a little,
progression drama?
right?
Talk to me. How did you feel about the progression drama? And how do you feel about the game launching the state it's in? Because hey, guess what? I'm cut from the same cloth.
No, yes, yeah. So I look at that game like in the sense like Halo Infinite Disappointments. Like that's my subtitle to that game.
Nice. We have
Right.
a winner.
Yeah, but it's like, and it's sad, right? Like Gears went to the same thing, and it's like Microsoft fails at that particular part every time. Like they try to do the same thing with Gears, get into that Funko Pop XCOM type of game, and then create like the tactics game that was there, and then they did the same with Halo. Like they had Halo Wars, which is like in another genre, like expanding the universe as much as they can, and with mixed results, right? But they take these mixed results in a negative direction. They don't build on what originally made the game good and build upon that. So for example, like God of War did really well. Now God of War Ragnarok is more God of War, and then there's a comic book series that did very well in the middle. That there's like an animated series that did very well in the middle. But that's not what they're going in the direction they're going off, right? Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2. It's more Spider-Man in these three games, right? And there could be something that they're doing in the middle, but the main core concept of what made Spider-Man good is still there in those three games, and that's where I think like Microsoft kind of bungles with their main franchises, because they had like three very good ones, like you said, like Gears was one of them, Halo was one of them, Mass Effect was an Xbox thing for a while, but then it wasn't. Uh, so, so like they had these things which they could have built upon, but they chose not to for some reason, and then it was like a lot of people like it, but they don't like it. What to do with this? So now they have kind of pushed themselves into this place. Xbox Game Pass is a very good deal, like you said. 50 rupees for a month of infinite, relatively infinite number of games. But it is still like if there is a God of War press release, that's what we'll talk about. So it still beats that. I think that's the kind of impact that Sony has created by themselves. They have worked very hard on it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. And I agree with you that, yeah, from a discoverability standpoint, yes, more people know Wolverine, more people know Spider-Man. But there was a point in time where they were competitive here. And that's what really bothers me, right? But then that time was Halo 3, man. So that's the thing. And I recall with Halo 3, they went to town with everything Halo related. That was the last time we saw a major push. I don't think
And
we're
that
going to
was
see a
also
major
price
push.
related. Like I remember very clearly going out to get like a PS3, but the Xbox 360 was like 3 to 4 thousand cheaper, downright like 5,000 cheaper. And
Yep,
that's when I got an Xbox 360, and that's what got me into Halo and got me into Mass Effect, got me into Gears, And
yep, yep.
that was competitive pricing from them from that point of time. And at this point of time, price doesn't really matter, but games too, because that's what people are looking at to buy like
Yeah.
5,000.
Yeah, I agree with you. And even pricing was one part of it. And even at that time, they had the lowest first party pricing. I think 1875 or 1850 was the going rate versus Sony at that time, which I think was 2499 or 2799, depending on the game. But I mean, yeah, I think they could have been competitive. And there still is a market for these things. And just that the market of it, sadly, isn't on Xbox. And I say that because people, like, if I look at the number of people on my Steam list who want to pre-order or already have pre-ordered these games, they've done it on Steam. So yeah, it's like best played on Steam in this country at this point. Even
Yeah, so
Master
like
Chief Collection.
dude, there is going to be that. Like you also have Epic on the sidelines doing its own thing with the platform where they want you on their own platform, and then you have like Microsoft Store, which I'm not sure of what direction they have right now. Do they want you to play on the Windows Store, or are they going to at one point of time say Steam is Game Pass too and whatnot? But I'm not sure. But it's going to be very difficult to break Steam hold on the PC. Like even more so than the PlayStation. Yeah, it's not a monopoly in any way, but still stronghold of the PlayStation in the console market. But Steam is much more stronger. It's even more impossible than Sony in this case,
Oh
in my
yeah,
opinion.
I agree completely. I agree completely because even if I look at it from a user perspective, because it's so the one good thing Nodwin did was getting Steam cards in, getting the
Mhm.
prepaid wallets in, and that's been really good because you have a lot more people who are willing to trust that over putting their card on Steam, and that helps. It helps on a big level. Sure, I mean for most of us, oh, big deal, another payment option, whoopie do. But then for a large part of people that matters. Even the cash on delivery option, while it was there, was a big push. So
Hmm.
and besides, at the end of the day, the reason why we're still going to be where I agree with you that Steam's dominance is going to continue is uh, some publishers have woken up to pricing better, and I'm
Hmm.
very happy about that because, for example, Tales of Arise, right? I was crying because I'm like, dude, like I'm not going to spend 4K on the PS or the PS5 for this. I'm not buying a digital copy for 4K. Physical
Hmm.
copy is 4.5. But then again, and that's like that, and that's going to be like a week or two down the line, assuming it shows up. Then I'm like, why should I bother? Let's see the price on Steam. The Ultimate
Hmm.
Edition is 3,499. So Bandai Namco finally is fixing pricing. I'm like, great. After the earlier heart attack of the year with Resident Evil 8's $5 grand PC Steam price, I'm like, okay, these one publishers figured stuff out. So, and that stuff helps, right? Even with Hitman 3, when the fact that they were able to, because people had an issue and people were very vocal about it, they changed the price. Same with Deathloop. So I think it's going to be a situation where because we're going to see developers more reacting more to bad pricing, that it's going to be a lot more tougher to break that stranglehold on Steam down the line. That's one part of it. And to be honest, from an ecosystem play, I don't see anyone doing a better job. And I say this because I mean, look, you have the trading cards, you have the points shop, you have so many things just built in, and there's so many things built in such a way where customers don't mind sticking around, right? I mean, to give you some perspective, there, like personally, right? I play a ton of Destiny too, more recently than late, and more of it, all of it is on Steam. Why? Because all my friends are playing it on Steam. No one's playing it on console. That's one part of it.
Hmm.
Second part of it
It's
is
crossplay now, by
because
the
I
way,
know
so
somebody
you
who's
yeah,
playing
can.
I
on
get that.
console.
Yeah, I get it. It's crossplay,
There,
but
I know someone who's played it on all platforms so imaginable. Like that's,
yeah,
I
but
used
so
the big
so
Destiny guy.
so the thing is like the reason why I'm playing on PC is because if I look at the pricing again, right?
Mhm.
Beyond Light and its expansions, the deluxe edition of Beyond Light with everything will cost me I think 2.2K, which is more than half the price of what I'd be playing on consoles.
Mhm.
So and see, they're able to do that because Bungie has full control on other and Steam supports regional pricing. So they're able to do all that. They're able to price what they want, how they want, and people are reciprocating in kind. I mean, the number
Mhm.
of the nu- I can't imagine. I mean, one fine day, I'm just when I'm bored of all of this, I'm just gonna create a Twitter account called Indian Destiny Two Names because I've seen people called like Aloo Paratha and Chilmar Bro, and I'm like, what? Okay, cool. This
Yeah,
game's hit mainstream
they're
on
going to be
PC
their
now.
permanent names now. By the way, like I with this
Yeah, I
August
know,
update. Yeah,
I
it's
know, I know.
I
I'm
don't
left to it.
know.
Enjoy life, guys.
So two things
So
here. Before this conversation, everything started. We asked for questions from the community, and we got many questions, but we also got like a statement of thanks. So Hemang from our viewers wants to say thanks to you for pushing better regional pricing in India. So
oh,
that's
MegaApple, he
yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah.
99% of the time, any story goes up on regional pricing comes from him. He is basically God's gift to PC gaming in this country, and one of the coolest people I know. And I say this
Right.
because he is ruthless. I mean, before I can even open Steam, he will have the info in place. And he's like, "Hey man, here's the price. Here's what you need to know. Please reach out to publisher and figure out." I'm like, "I'll see what I can do, man." So yeah, that guy is next level. In fact, he's
Mhm.
a lot of the reasons why I've been able to approach and figure out stuff on pricing is because of him.
Mhm.
He is one of the cooler people in the community. I mean, I find it amusing because I show up on the Indian gaming subreddit on occasion, PC price, someone will report about the PC price being bad. There'll be someone inevitably in the comments saying, "Call MegaApple 18 to fix this." That's his handle over there. And I'm like, yeah, good. We have a watchdog, so good.
And the second thing is that till date, we knew only one person who played or plays Destiny regularly, and now we know another. So the first
There's
one is
like
Ayush, and
thousands
now
of
we know
people, guys.
that you are also playing Destiny and enjoying it.
Two.
So
Destiny
that's like
2.
two people.
There are
Right?
more people. There are a lot more people. So the previous IGN editor Vaspan, he's playing it as well. There is Risey, who used to be pretty big on Twitch. He's also playing it regularly. There are a bunch of us who are just playing it, man. Even a couple of Indian YouTubers like Sneaky Shukla or slash Sneaky Mari. I don't know which name they go by now. They're also playing it regularly. So you have quite a few who are back in, and the reason why is because it went free to play. It went free to play, and because you have accessible pricing on PC, people are jumping in. So yeah. Speaking of which, how is it Ayush on PS5? Very curious to know.
It's not too bad. No. I think like like I've said this before as well. Like I also own Stadia here.
Nice.
And I think personally from all the platforms that I played, and I also played on the PC at my friends for some time, like 10 days or so. It's still the best experience is still on Stadia. Like on a PC, obviously you can like brute force it, GTX everything or whatever high note
Yes,
and all.
yes.
But like if you take a baseline, I think Stadia 60 FPS 4K delivery, it works like that works for me mostly. And now that's how I normally play Destiny. And what happens is like no, I prefer a controller most of the time, right?
Same.
So
That's how I'm playing it on PC with a controller.
so yeah, so that's, and like I mostly play on and I mostly play on the TV with like on my couch, so it works out. But sometimes in Destiny there are these challenges. There's one
Yeah.
where we kind of have to shoot someone's hand 3 times in a row, so to get an exotic gun. So for
Yeah.
that I went to my laptop and just used my mouse and keyboard. So because that's much
Nice.
more reflexive. So yeah, but like I think I played Destiny on all platforms that someone could play on. And for me, like I think I'm a big Bungie person. It's like that Halo thing that like kind of drove towards. So uh, I enjoy the shooting that the game has. I do
Same.
not like if somebody asks me today like what is the story? What are you doing in Destiny 2? So I'm like you're this like human person who's been revived by a small machine and you'll fight aliens. That's about it. But the shooting is really good, and it's a lot of shiny things to shoot at. So that's what I tell people.
I thought that
That's
was
better
like
than my
a
explanation.
I thought that was like a me problem because मैं recently I started playing just ऐसे because घर पे renovation and stuff, so I only have little time at the end of the day. Destiny is like mindlessly I can just I had Destiny and Division 2 both installed ना whichever feels कि ना आज ये मैं चालू करता हूँ, तो both are pretty mindless but fun. And I mean if you pay attention to it तो I think समझ आएगा. But मेरा पूरे time thought था I'm only going to the quest marker and shooting. Like मुझे पता
भाई
नहीं है कि ना like हो क्या रहा exactly and where I am. मुझे ये भी नहीं पता कि which planet or location I am on right now. All I
So
know is
the
that I'm
quest
shooting.
that you do, so the quest that you do in Destiny, it's like 15 minutes to half an hour, or in the raids can be longer, obviously, but the standard 15 minutes, half an hour's quest. That's the quest, right? Now the lore behind that quest has a 3 hour video for which you have to understand. Then you come out understanding nothing about it.
Oh
So
yeah, it's pretty much like that. But interesting that you say that you can brute force on PC. But I mean, for listeners who may not be aware, it actually will run decently on on a mid and low end machine if you know what
yeah.
you're doing. So I play most of it on an Asus laptop that has a Ryzen 3550H and a 1650 GTX, and I'm able to get around 40 FPS at 1080p, medium details. It looks fine, plays fine. The good thing is, yeah, and then if you look at most laptops being sold here, surprise, surprise, most of them ship with a 1650. So when you put all that together, you realize, yeah, that explains why we have a lot more Indians playing around PC at this point too.
Mhm.
But yeah, I agree with you on the question lore, man. It is. I just tell people it's like space version of Ocean's 12. If you don't understand Ocean's 12, you won't understand this game. Stay around for the shooting and the cool weapons. That's it.
Yeah.
And
I
the
think like if
skyboxes.
yeah,
That
I
too. Best
agree, man. I
skyboxes ever.
agree.
So
I think like anyone who's playing that game and is like finding it boring, like I think once you get to the Forgotten City, that particular area, that's when like the game kind of opens up. Like now you
Agreed.
are able to do you. Like once you get to the Forgotten City, then you are able to do
Wait,
you.
Forgotten
Then you
City
just
तो
want to
कुछ
take
और
a
game है ना? It's that time loop game, right? Is there a
Dreaming City,
Forgotten
I
City
think.
in Destiny also? Like I've gone beyond light and everything, but मुझे कुछ याद नहीं है ऐसे.
You have gone beyond light, but not into the Forgotten City. That's endgame content, Manas.
Okay, so we got to know about Destiny, and Ayush put his praise and everything on it. But like Rishi, what other kind of games do you play? What's the last game you played? What's your go-to game on mobile? And what is your game of the year till now? It's a lot of
So
questions.
last game I played was Tales of Arise, and that was earlier today. Really like the combat system. Really like what they've done. Been playing that on PC. So that's
Just to
really
put it in
nice.
perspective, this interview happened at 10 a.m. in the morning, and you played Tales of Arise before like
Yeah,
coming onto this podcast
Nice.
on a Saturday evening. So on a
Yeah, for me
Saturday
morning.
day.
For me
Yeah.
morning. Yeah. So Tales of Arise. I was playing that just before getting on. That's a really. I like what Bandai Namco does with its RPGs. They have a more comfortable feel to them than anything else at this point. So yeah, been playing that. And go-to game on mobile is BGMI. Simply because there's always something to look into from a point of view of not. It's not like, oh, it's not like I'm going to run a package sniffer every time. I had to do it that one time just to double check whether I'm sending data. But I'm playing it for fun, and it's because like there's a lot of what I like with that game is they've mastered the time to kill element. When you die, you never feel that you're dying too soon. And that's something I used to have an issue with battle royale games in their infancy quite a bit. And that's something to me Fortnite still has a problem with. But I think that's so to me it's nice because you have that. I'm doing it mainly for the exploration more than anything else. So because it's nice to just go through the map and chill. Like literally that's how I play BGMI or any battle royale game. Go through the map and just chill. So been playing that on mobile. And that and Divinity 2 on iPad, which is ridiculously good, probably the best version of the game.
Oh.
Disclaimer, I haven't played it on PC, I've played it on consoles. It is bad on consoles. I do not like it on consoles. The load times are pathetic. On iPad, it's pretty good though. So for me, it's basically Divinity 2 and BGMI. And my game of the year so far, most likely, I mean, leaving Destiny 2 aside, is most likely Scarlet Nexus.
Oh yeah?
It's basically Astral Chain, but better, in my opinion. They do the combat really well. I like the fact that the combat is good. It's a mix of long range and short range combat, which is done really well. And at the same time, they've borrowed elements from games like Persona, where in between missions you can build up relationships with your characters. You can end up hearing more about the story and backstory of the world. So to me, Scarlet Nexus is pretty much at this point in time, game of the year material. And that'll probably change in 2 weeks when I
While
play
we're
Lost
at it,
Judgment.
Sushir and Manas, what are your game of the years at up to this time, like September 7, 11th?
Actually, Rishi से तो पूछ लिया on the spot ना, मुझे तो लिस्ट ही याद नहीं. All I remember is Hitman 3 came out this year. Do you remember? Like January में आया था. I don't even remember games. क्या कहते हैं? But luckily, Disco Elysium got a final cut this year, so I can cheat and say Disco Elysium is this year's GOTY also for me.
For
What
me,
about you,
it's
Sushir?
like I've been going through Psychonauts too, and I'm really enjoying it.
Oh yeah.
Double Fine
Nice.
is a long time darling, and I really love all their games. So I'm just excited to play that game. It's just a very interesting level design. That's what I can say.
Nice. I have been going through my backlogs. Like I have this year, it's mostly been like games that I've not played for the last couple of years. So to finish up on that, like the only game that I'm playing this year is probably what like Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, probably the Iki Island, and I loved it. I loved it. Like it's on my chest, guys.
But you also played
No.
Returnal, Ratchet and all, right?
Returnal, Ratchet, but I don't think like
Not
for me
GTA.
personally they were like GOTY materials. I think they're very good games, all of them. Returnal especially does something very different with like the rogue element, while putting in the AAA aesthetics and all that stuff. But I think like I haven't found a game which like speaks to me this year very strongly. I think for me it's like AC Valhalla. That's the game that I played this year, and it's mind blowing. That game is pretty good. I was not expecting it to be that good.
I
That's what I
agree.
would say.
Oh, I agree completely. That kind of blew me out of the water too. That was really nicely done. I like the fact in that game, and this is the thing with every Assassin's Creed game, is that level of detail with in terms of
Hmm.
historical, in terms of just the locations is fantastic. So
Yeah.
I really like Valhalla too.
Yeah, I remember like that the same thing happened to me when I played Witcher 3. Like that game was my GOTY for like 4 years running. So that that how good that game was. Uh, but yeah, this has been great. So like apart from like the video game things, Rishi, which is like almost like 90% of your life, what kind of other media do you consume apart from games? Like books, movies, television series? What do you do? Like when you're
So
not doing video games?
I've been reading One Piece a lot because I have some.
Reading, not watching.
I don't know. I prefer reading it. So
Okay.
I've been reading the manga. I think I'm like one third way through. That's really
Hmm.
good. And I really like it because of the one simple concept is, see, if you look at most forms of media and particularly games, right? It's always based on this premise that you are the center of the universe. With One Piece, you're so far from the center, it's not even funny. And it's so cool because eh, I'm always curious to see how they up the stakes, and they never disappoint in terms of upping the stakes. In terms of, oh, you thought you met somebody who's probably the most powerful character in the universe. No, you yet to meet him. So I really like the way they built that up. I really like the feel they've given.
Mhm.
So to me, I've been reading a lot of One Piece. And in terms of other stuff, I mean, yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. Mainly, I'm very curious with what's going on in the space of crypto and social media. In the sense that I'm
Mm.
very curious with all the scams that have been going around. So there's this channel I frequent called Coffeezilla, and being checked out a lot. I mean, basically ODing on that channel. And there's another channel I check out regularly called Watcher, because Watcher has a really good series called Puppet History Theater, which is in its fourth season. So yeah, that's what and it's really cool because what they do is they talk about historical events and what went down uh, ages ago. So yeah, that's what I've been doing off late.
Rishi, I had a question since like we're
Awesome.
on a podcast and like we've been podcasting like with Ayush. I've been podcasting I think since 2019 September October sometime, and you've also done
Mm.
podcast before, right? And I mean not to feel bad or anything, but like we don't get like insane views or anything, but I mean hey. हफ्ते में एक दिन बैठ के गेम्स के बारे में बात करना इट्स गुड फन तो वी नेवर स्टॉप एंड आयुष लकीली दिस फील्स लाइक वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट आयुष रियली लव्स so there's no stopping this
Yeah.
but you've also done
These
podcast
are
before and
these are two people that I pay to talk about things that I've played
yeah,
about video games.
Ayush pays us, huh? Taki, like a weekly therapy session talking about games. But like you've done podcasts before, and I've seen some of them stopping also. So, what are your thoughts on ki, like India mein podcast viable? Like, I mean, of course, like you said, not everything has to be viable, which is a feature of my videos also. मुझे पता है ज़्यादा लोग देखेंगे नहीं, even though मुझे takes like hundreds of hours to put them together. But like, what do you think? कि ना like podcast India में like, do you think they will work eventually? या क्या situation है right now with podcast?
So I mean, like most media, the what most create rather not media. I think with most creative endeavors, people put too much effort onto creating polished work rather than being consistent. And I think it's more important to be consistent and iterate along the way. You're not going to get everything right the first shot. You're never going to get it right the first shot, and that's what most people still fail to realize. As for podcasts themselves, yes, there is a future. The one I was on was Transition, which had I think 120 plus episodes on NDTV. We stopped because their logic is if you're leaving, we don't want to continue it, which I think was the stupidest thing ever. They could have continued without me. So that's the thing. Consistency is important, you know.
What was
And
the
the fun
feedback
fact.
like from the listeners? Kina, like, what did they think of like long form content? India, mein, I don't know how much long form content works.
So I'll tell you an interesting thing. There was a point in time where Transition almost got cancelled, 20 episodes in. And we almost got cancelled 20 episodes in because the feedback we were getting was that the podcasts were too long
Okay.
and the drop off rates were really high. And when that happened, the producer on the podcast, Pranay, was like, listen, man, what do we do? You give me 10 minutes, we'll sort this out. So in 10 minutes, I literally sat with him and told him, look, we are going to change the entire format around. Because with that podcast, we went from 40-minute ramblings to a concise 20-minute podcast, weekly 20-minute podcast, focusing on issues that matter. And that's how we rolled with it, to be honest. From then we hit another 100 episodes. So the important thing was being able to adapt, right? And now if there was pushback where Pranay was like, no, we can't do this, or oh, we can't do it, we have to do it for a certain long amount of time, it wouldn't have survived. So, and for us, the thing is what most people see is, oh, they see cool pieces of content, they're like, oh, that's so cool to do that for a living. That's nice.
Yeah.
What you guys also don't understand is that there is metrics attached to it. We have to sit and hit a certain milestone in terms of numbers, otherwise it's pointless. Same thing with any written piece of content. It's not like I mean, yeah, while a lot of things are written because they need to be written, I also look at the traffic. I'm one of those people who'll have a tab open with Google Analytics throughout the day, because that's what I do. I look at all that stuff and I make sure if the work's more efficient and that's getting the results where they're necessary. And that's, I think, one part of the business that editors and editorial and creative people fail to realize, that the metrics matter. They're not the be all and end all. They matter from a point of view of telling you if you're going in the right direction or not. Again, not all of it is right direction, right? Because you can get a ton of traffic on outrage bait, but is that the thing you want to build, right? So it's a good way to just give you a rough idea where you're going. So transition, what we noticed was there were drop-offs and it was taking too much time to edit and people weren't clicking through. So after the first 20 episodes, we essentially revamped the entire approach. We kept it a 20-minute long podcast, and we made sure it was focused only on current stuff. And the results were immediate. The boosts were immediate. The views sustained it. It was really good. It worked out. So I think I wouldn't look at it as long form. I would look at it more from a point of view of this is what audiences will gravitate towards and what they won't gravitate towards. And for us, it just seemed to help that this was something people gravitated towards. So we were kind of like, my bad, the smart lamp just went on 1 second. Anyway, point is, so that's the main thing. It's what people gravitate towards. Weird lighting situation here, man. My bad. So one sec, just give me a second.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, just give me a minute, man. Hold on 1 second. All right. Let's just, hopefully this fixes things. Yeah, much better. Cool. So the thing is, the main thing is what people sorry about that. Like, the windows behind and everything just went dark. I think it's raining outside. So yeah. So the point is, it was about creating something people gravitate towards. And in our case, when we pivoted, it ended up lasting much longer. So I think from a perspective of long form, I don't look at it as long form, short form, no form. I look at it as making what you're comfortable with in terms of you being able to sleep at night and realizing you're not creating shit. And from a point of view of getting audiences into a reasonable degree. If you're able to get both, great, works. So that's what happened with transition in particular. We pivoted and that's how it ended up working. Now, I do believe there is an audience for podcasts. There is an audience for, and I say that because if you look at podcasts as niche as Darknet Diaries, right, which is all about hacking and all about responsible disclosures, penetration testing, stuff like that. A large chunk of that audience is Indian. Yeah. There is an audience. The audience is there. It's just a question of giving them stuff they want to hear. I mean, there's a reason MythPath decided to venture in a podcast, right? I mean, fine. One thing, he's got a voice for it, right? He's got the mimicry voice. He's got that settled down. But the other reason is because there is an audience. Spotify is not going to throw, companies will throw money at anything. But I do believe that Spotify is one of the smarter ones around where this is concerned. So I think there is a market. And it's not just an India market, it's a global market. And for us, the user feedback was good. There was, I think someone even put up a thread on Reddit saying, bring it back. And I'm like, bro, can't help you here. And we used to get that feedback regularly. Even while it was on, we'd get feedback on what we would cover. And that's because we made sure that it was only available on one place at that time. We didn't want to put it everywhere out on the internet. And we want to make sure people come to the site for it. And that worked out for us. That strategy worked. There is a market. It's just a question of finding the right way to tackle it, for the right way to approach it.
That actually sounds great, but it kind of is a good news for us. We try to do this semi professionally because we are like all like complete amateurs in this scene. So but it helps out talking about venting about video games once in a while, and we have tried out the way like tightening up the edits, making sure that we don't ramble on and all that, and it's just good tips from you that we'll carry forward. We'll try and incorporate some of those elements.
I mean, just be consistent, man. Put it out there long enough, people will give a crap. And I say that because, so to give you some perspective, the NDTV podcast lasted, I think it was like 3 years and 120 episodes. Meanwhile, the actual first Indian gaming podcast has only had, I think, 40 episodes since it ever started.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that started, I think, in 2007. So my point is, it's just my point is to get the consistency right. Everything will happen.
Also, 2007 might be a little too, like, I remember one of the earliest podcasts, Indian wise, that I heard was AIB doing some stuff. I don't even know if that was a
No.
podcast.
That was so the very first podcast was from Indian Video Gamer, IVG, IndianVideoGamer.com. It was in 2007. The first episode was then, and the last episode was earlier this year. I don't know if they're still doing more, but I think they had like 40 or 60 episodes from now to then. Now, that's not consistent. So you got to be consistent if you want it to work, right? There is an audience. It's just that the gestation period would be a little longer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I could be wrong here, Manas, but if I recall, there's at least there's a popular saying in the YouTube scene that you're not going to get any traffic on your first 50 videos.
Yeah.
Right? Similar situation with podcast. There is that gestation period, right?
Yeah. And also,
People have
साथ
to
में
really see
like
it through.
काफी लोग जब पॉडकास्ट सुनते भी है तो even for me, like when I started off listening to podcasts, I think 2010 वगैरह में I started because I started running. So like I needed some background noise. I'm not even always paying attention to podcast beyond IGN का ये सब. I remember NDTV news time पे नहीं. But I remember AIB was doing something. Like they were just talking about something and I just needed some background noise. मुझे लगता है इंडिया में maybe a lot of people are not in a situation where they are free enough to need background noise. Like वो tension
Pretty
वो
much.
सा है ना, maybe वो भी एक factor है.
Yeah, that's true. That's also, but then see, it's also very if you look at the user journey for a podcast, right? It's not as easily defined. If I look at it, so like let's be honest, half the reason people discover stuff is because they see it through Google or they see their friends talking about it. With podcasts, what are the methods of discovery? You're either going to be in an app like Spotify, Pocket Casts, or iTunes, and you'll find it from there, right? Or how else are you going to find it? The discovery methods are a lot more tougher to put out. And that's what I think it'll happen with time. But I do believe there's a future. There is a necessity for it. Simply because there's a lot more you can fit in and a lot more nuance you can get into that you can't get into on video, or that'll get lost in a written piece. So it's necessary.
All right. I think it's almost time to wrap it up. Rishi, but I had like one more question. Can I, like, you worked at so many places from NDTV, like gaming mein, my understanding of like from my knowledge, like was you going from NDTV to IGN. Beach mein, I worked at GamingMonk, and I heard talk of them wanting to have you on board, but you didn't. Any reason why you did not? I mean, not कि कुछ बुराई करो उनकी वैसे नहीं, but like how do you pick something that you want to do and what you don't want to do, wala?
So GamingMonk was an interesting one. Yes, they approached me, and to this day, I still talk to Ashwin. Ashwin, to me, is, and I rarely say this. In fact, I don't say this at all. Probably the most genuine person in the business, Ashwin Haryani. And when the offer first came around, I was very interested, not for any other reason, but to work with Ashwin. That was basically the entire reasoning and proposition, because I've dealt with him before GamingMonk. I've dealt with him before esports. I've known the guy for years. With me, he's been upfront, right? And I thought that was really cool that he thought of me when they wanted to get into content. But it did make sense to me because while I'm a great fan of Ashwin and I would really love to work with him. I would kill to work with him. What bothered me was the strategy. And the person heading up strategy, in his infinite wisdom, said the words you should never say to anyone in our line of work, which is, and I'm paraphrasing here, we need to make content that goes viral. I'm like,
Oh
bro,
my God. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, even I enjoyed
you
working with Ashwin, but I know who you're talking about.
you cannot. That it doesn't work that way. Content, you don't. It's. I mean, fine. There are ways to engineer things to make it go viral, and that's something that people like BuzzFeed specialize in, right? But you're talking to someone who spends who used to, when you could leave the house, spend half his time at game stores talking to retail. Or talking to people in the business side of it. I'd show up at events not to ask, hey, how's your new GPU performance, but to ask the guys running the show how's business was like. Let's talk about that. You're going to tell me, make things go viral. Bro, it doesn't work. That's not how I do. And that was like, to me, a huge red flag. And that's why I turned it down. Because I mean, content, you can't force it. You can't force virality. And half the time, the biggest wins don't happen because things go viral. The biggest wins happen because people care.
Yeah.
And I say that because, dude, to be honest, nowadays, fine. Everyone's like, hey, where to buy a PS5? Yeah, I can help you guys there because I have access to the information. I've worked in retail. I know who to talk to. I can get information out. That's fine. Or the stuff on BGMI. It's because you're relentless on covering it. You'll get the results because it's something people care about. If you're going to approach me and say the entire content plan is to make things go viral, that's a very slippery path. Because to make anything go viral, you're going to go down a very dangerous path of baiting everyone short term. You're going to go down a very dangerous path of putting up thumbnails that you shouldn't be putting up, all in the attempt of getting cheap clicks and traffic. And it doesn't work, yeah. At the end of the day, you want to build something people care about. If people don't
Yeah.
care, what's the point? So
The
that's
people
what
who
bothers.
make it also should be caring about it. Like that also, that's also a part of the
Oh
job.
yeah.
And
To
the
be,
team
I
working
agree
on it.
completely. I agree. If see what most, and that's the thing, right? Most executives don't understand that. They don't understand that it's not just pull out a piece of content, get traffic, get ad revenue, or get sponsorship revenue, or get that's fine. I get that. That's the business side of it. But if you have people creating it who aren't comfortable creating it, or who feel that they're creating something that's not adding value, there is a problem. You can't work like that. You can't work like that at all. And I mean, that's also a part of the reason that when I started Mako with Mikhail, we were very focused that it's going to be Japan stuff and industry stuff, nothing beyond that. So when the entire BGMI PUBG ban drama was happening, I was like watching the world burn and having a good laugh. I'm like, thank God I don't have to deal with this crap, you know? Because see, from one point of view, it's not something I genuinely. I the thing is, I didn't want to step into that because if you get into that rat race of covering something that popular, and if you're a site which is just run by two people, right, you're going to be outgunned. You're not going to get any traffic. It's going to be a waste of your time because you're fighting against companies that are funding sweatshops. A team of just two writers
I know what you're talking
can't
about.
can't compete against an armada of sweatshops running 10, 15, 20 people paying them minimum wage just to churn out content so that Sundar Pikachu gives them time of day. Yeah, it's an SEO game then. You can I mean I can play the SEO game. We've done it well, but I didn't want to at that point in time. I didn't feel I was adding value to my life or anyone's value because everyone's doing the same thing, right? What's the point? Either you have something that makes sense to put out or you don't bother. So, and I think that gets lost. That gets lost because do you guys watch South Park?
Yeah, I used to. I haven't followed up on it lately.
So old episode, Quest for Ratings.
Oh yeah,
There's an old
yeah.
yeah. So you don't want to be or you don't want to be a hamster on the machine where it's just a quest for ratings all the time, right? You want to do something that matters. And yeah, and that's exactly why I didn't take things up at GamingMonk.
Rishi, you gave us some like really good insight on where we should move next as like part of Gameffine. But I just can't help, even though you are on this side and we are completely amateurs. What is there some kind of tips that you would want to give Gameffine on how to move forward and actually? I mean, we are trying to create content which we like, and it's something very personal to us, so we try and keep doing that every week consistently. But apart from all the tips that you gave regarding this, is there something more that we can work on?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about. See, the thing is, everyone's an amateur. Firstly, we're all, and it's. I don't look at it as. I don't even look at it as reaching mastery in anything. I look at it as how soon and how often can you get your hands dirty. That's how I approach any of this. So I always try to approach these things from having no knowledge at all and then take life from there. So I don't look at it as this whole amateur, non-amateur thing. I would just say consistency. The main thing is get consistency, because the more you have out there, the more you can gauge what's working, what's not working. The more you can gauge sentiment, the more you can take things from there. I would just say just focus on consistency to start with. The rest will come in line. Because eventually you're going to reach a point where maybe after 60, 70, 80, even 100 pieces of content, you'll find at least 3 or 4 that went nuclear. 3 or 4 that people cared about. So just a question of, just being consistent. If there's no consistency, what's the point? So I would just say focus on that. I mean, to be honest, every major win I've had in this line of work has been because of consistency. It's not been because it's not like because I was able to change one URL schema in one place and suddenly Google gave me multitudes of traffic. No, it's not that. Just create shit you care about and just keep at it. Well, what's the point? The rest of it will figure itself out.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation, Rishi. We had a great time talking with you, and you provided like us and the viewers like a very credible and interesting insight into this world of video gaming. We are missing Ayush right now because both of his kids are up. they heard people talking about video games and they are up, so I guess he has to tend to them. But then Manas can roll the credits. He can talk about the ending, right?
Yeah, same way. Thanks, Rishi. This was like an amazing conversation. I've never talked to you. Well, I've talked to you maybe I think at events or something, but never talked to you really in depth. There's a lot to learn, lot to know, especially somebody who's been in the industry for this long and also who actually cares about games. Na, us perspective se sunne mein bada maza. Like you said, the going viral wala idea. I've heard that a lot. In fact, been told that a lot before I got fired. So isliye I know it's good to hear from you. Like I've
No worries.
Yeah, hopefully we can do this again with more topics. I would maybe, yeah, I'm sure all of us would sometime just talk games. Maybe ये तो काफी serious है वैसे, काफी ज्ञान था इसमें. Maybe just shit talk games. We can do another episode whenever you have the chance.
Sure, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me, guys. This was great. And it's fascinating to see a line of questioning that's a lot more in depth than your usual. You guys are actually doing a good job.
Thank you.
So she had prepared a whole questionnaire पहले से to ask you. So thanks Sushi for that. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, the podcast, please like तो कर ही देना. Subscribe नहीं किया तो भी कर देना. Always helps. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Maybe we can reach out again to Rishi, have some answers. और if you have any feedback, I'm sure Hemang is listening. उसको तो मैं अलग से WhatsApp पे mark करूंगा कि bro तेरी तारीफ हुई है. We'll be very happy to hear that. And yeah, thanks Rishi once again.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye bye.